So now we're going to learn how to remember and how to complete this unit circle easily, only knowing three values. A half, root 2 over 2, and root 3 over 2. So a half is the smallest, the root 3 over 2 is the biggest value of all these three. Now, let's start with the quadrant 1. This is the first quadrant, this is the second quadrant, this is the third quadrant, and this is the fourth quadrant. And let's see the signs of all these four quadrants. Remember when we said that the cosine is the x value and the sine is the y value. So the first quadrant, we have a positive cosine and a positive sine. So both values are positive. On the second quadrant, we have a negative cosine and a positive sine. On the third quadrant, we have all negative, so both negatives. And on the fourth quadrant, we have a positive cosine and a negative sine. Now, let's go to 30 degrees. On the 30 degrees, we can see that this is the cosine, so it represents the x-axis, and the sine, as we've seen, it represents the y-axis. Now, the cosine, that's the longest side. You can remember it like that. It's the longest side. So I'm going to choose the biggest value for the cosine. So I have root 3 over 2. And for the sine value, which is the y value, that's the shortest side. So I'm going to choose the smallest value, which is a half. That's a good start. So I have the cosine of 30 degrees root 3 over 2, and the sine of 30 degrees is a half. Now for the 45 degrees, I have root 2 over 2 for cos and root 2 over 2 for sine. Both are the same, and we have proven it on the previous video. Now for the 60 degrees, we have the cosine as a half. You can see that this is this very short side, the x side, and that this is the y, which is the longest side. So it's going to be, the sine is going to be the biggest value, which is the root 3 over 2. Okay, once we know these values for 30, 45, and 60, we can figure out the rest of the unit circle, because 120 degrees is actually the same as 60 degrees. We just need to be careful a little bit about the signs here. You can see also that the distances over here, the distances are exactly the same. There's a lot of patterns actually on the unit circle that will makes it very interesting. That means the cosine and the sine are going to be the same slightly, but I said slightly because we have to be careful of the signs. So the cos of 120, that's going to be a negative a half, negative, because remember cosine x value, so it's on the left hand side. So we have the negative a half, and the sine is going to be root 3 over 2. For 135 degrees, it's the same as 45 degrees. We just need to be careful of the signs. So the cosine is going to be negative root 2 over 2, and the sine is going to be root 2 over 2, positive. And for the 150 degrees, which is the same as the 30 degrees, you can see the distances are exactly the same. 30 degrees from 0 degrees, and this is actually 30 degrees from 180 degrees. So we can express 150 as 180 minus 30. So the cosine for 150 degrees will be negative root 3 over 2, and a positive sine, which is going to be a half. Now I have the 210 degrees, which is going to be the same as 150 degrees, which is going to be the same as 30 degrees. I just need to change the signs a little bit. I can see that on the third quadrant, both cosine and sine are negatives. So here I will have a negative root 3 over 2 and a negative half. Now for the 225 degrees, which is the same as the 135 degrees, same as 45 degrees. You can see the distances are exactly the same. So I'm going to have a negative root 2 over 2 and the negative root 2 over 2 for sine. And the 240 degrees, which is 30 degrees distance from 270 degrees. This is 30 degrees distance from 270 degrees, which is going to have the same values as the 120 and 60 because they are both 30 degrees away from 90 degrees if you have a look at that. So I will have a negative a half and a negative root 3 over 2 for 240 degrees. Now, given these patterns, you can easily do the 300 degrees. 300 degrees, I know that my cosine is going to be positive, my sine is going to be negative. So I have a half and negative root 3 over 2. For the 315 degrees, I would like you to try that on your own. I have a positive root 2 over 2 and then negative sine, which is negative root 2 over 2. And 330 degrees, that would be a positive root 3 over 2 and then negative sine, which is going to be negative a half. Now let's go to 0 degrees, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees, and 360 degrees. So for 0 and 360 degrees, it's going to be 1, 0. So the cosine of 0 or 360 degrees is 1, and the sine is 0. For 90 degrees, this is going to be 0, 1. It's a unit circle. The cosine of 90 is 0. The sine is 1. So the distance from 0 to 90 is 1. So for 180 degrees, I know that the cosine is going to be negative 1. Think about it as the x-axis, negative 1. And the cosine, of course, is going to be 0. And last but not least, 270 degrees, cosine is going to be 0. Sine is going to be negative 1. Now, as I said before, unit circle is all about patterns. It will be a really good practice if you get an empty unit circle and you try this by yourselves. But the 3 values that you need to remember, actually, once you practice it, you don't even need to remember those. You don't need to memorize those, are these 3. Knowing for 30 degrees, 45 degrees, 60 degrees, and then you'll be able to complete the whole circle. Thank you.